So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first panel. So this is a panel on measuring impact, something that I'm personally very interested in and find it to be much harder than it initially seems. So we've got some experts here. We've got Kristen Fanslow from the Ākina Foundation, Josh Dry from Kogo, and Brad Norman from the Whānau Ora Commissioning Agency and Te Whānau o Waitarera. Welcome.
Thanks, Jamie. Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai ki te panel on measuring impact. Ko Kristen Fanslow tōku ingoa no Waiaho, engari tipu aki ki Tamaki Makaurau. My name's Kristen. I have Norwegian blood, but have grown up here in Auckland. I am the Director of Impact at Ākina and hosting the panel today. For those who don't know, Ākina is a non-profit organisation. We're working towards creating a regenerative Aotearoa. And how we do that is we contribute through work in capability building for impact enterprises. We have social procurement expertise, and my team do a lot of impact consulting across government, non-profits and corporates. Helping them to organise, understand and manage their impact. So today's session is one that's close to my heart and Ākina's heart. And I'm very happy to have Brad and Josh with me today. They're coming from quite different organisations, but I think we'll get quite a complementary kind of perspective from both of them on measuring impact. So I'm going to pass over to them to introduce themselves, their organisations, and if you could both also perhaps give a bit of an overview of the work that you're currently doing around measuring your impact. I'll pass over to Brad, please.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou, ai te whānau kuhu mai nei, ai te ata nei, tēnā koutou katoa, mihana ki a koe, Kristen. Ko wai au, no te apua tuku pāpā, no hokianga tuku māma, tipu aki au ki Traki Pai Whenua ki Tāmaki Makaurau. So my father, he was from right up the top of New Zealand, a little township called Te Hapua, and my mum was raised in Hokianga. Myself, born and raised in the North Shore of Auckland. I'm the Chief Data and Digital Officer for the Whānau Ora Commissioning Agency, as well as Te Whānau Waiparera. The Whānau Ora Commissioning Agency commissions investment out to over 100 Māori whānau Ora providers across the North Island to predominantly work with whānau Māori in their communities, to work with them, to support them in achieving their needs, their priorities and aspirations for and with them across their communities. Likewise, for Whānau Waiparera, we work with whānau in the West Auckland, and we're also the backbone organisation for a collective called Te Paihering o Tāmaki, which works with a whole range of organisations across the wider Tāmaki Isthmus. So really happy to be here. We've been on the impact journey for about 10 years. A handful of us went over to Australia in 2013 just to understand what outcomes management, impact measurement was. And so we've been on this journey for about 10 years. It's been a journey, and we've had to upskill our whole team, our workforce, our organisations that we work with as well. And it's a continual journey to work towards understanding what impact measurement and, most importantly, impact management is about, and how we respond to the information insights that we gain from these analytics that we achieve. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Brad. Kia ora koutou, everyone. My name's Josh. I'm based in Ōtautahi, Christchurch, and I work for an organisation called Kogo, and we are a climate financial tech company. We're on a mission to empower millions of individuals and small businesses around the globe to measure their climate impact, their carbon impact. We do that by integrating carbon tracking and, most importantly, climate action or reduction solutions into banking and accounting experiences. And then we allow those individuals, those households, those businesses, and those banks or those accountancy providers and Kogo to collectively measure and report on that impact created, and hopefully create a ripple effect of emissions reduction. Just on some of the impacts so far, so I'll be talking about more of a carbon and climate lens in regards to impact today. We measure a lot. Potential users as of last month, 1.25 million small businesses have the ability through our tools to measure and reduce their emissions. We're up to 15.7 million individuals have the ability to measure and reduce. And then we also measure those who are measuring their emissions, those who are monthly active, they're engaging, they're coming back to the solutions, and those who are reducing as well. And we've got a lot to talk about, so I won't get too much into our impact model, but I'll drop a link to our impact model for those who want to dive deep into it. That's in the chat there. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. So I think we'll get straight into some of the practices. I know Brad has been doing a lot of work in training and development for himself and the team. So Brad, if you could share, what are the best practices that you're seeing in terms of measuring impact?
Look, the first and fundamental thing for us is that you need to ensure at all stages of your process when you are implementing your impact management plan across your organization that whānau, our stakeholders, must be involved from the start. And that concept really resonated with our agency because it totally aligned to our whānau order approach and model that we deliver for and with whānau. So it's not about a organization in Auckland or an entity in Wellington determining what success looks like for whānau and for our families. It's actually understanding what their needs, what their priorities are, and quite often allowing them to design the solution that's going to work for them, and also how they're going to measure the success of that program. So it's whānau indicators of success. So we had to totally shift our mindset in that space, change the whole culture of what we were measuring, how we were measuring it, and how we were determining how successful we were in meeting the needs of our whānau. Because for decades, we were given contracts that were prescriptive and not permissive and really detailed around the what, the how, the when, the why. And so we had to totally shift. What it meant is that we had to work with our government agencies to put them on a journey of learning as well at the same time. And so it's been a 10-year journey, as I said earlier. But fundamental to that is that everything that we do are for and with whānau, whether it's designing your tools, your systems, your processes, the way we engage with whānau, and ultimately how we are measuring the success of those touch points along the journey that they're creating for and with themselves. And what we want to ultimately do is have them in a position where they are self-managing, self-determining what they want to achieve. We're providing the resourcing and wraparound support to enable that. And so our impact measurement and management approach had to totally align to that as well. So we need to make sure that it's totally agile, it's flexible, it's responsive to the continuing evolving needs of whānau along that journey. You have to start somewhere. So when we started out on this process, we went and did all these workshops. As you know, Kristen, you were part of the teams back in the day with our first SROI. And quite often we wanted to design the perfect framework, the perfect model, et cetera, and it just doesn't work because in the meantime, our whānau are not getting better. And so you've got to be brave, you got to take some risks, and you need to start somewhere along that journey. And you need to have a system and tool set that allows you to be agile and flexible enough that you can quickly change as whānau needs and priorities change. And we saw that over the COVID pandemic as well. And so it allows us to shift and lift our resourcing on the ground to respond to those emerging needs of whānau.
And it's really, you know, that investment over the time means that that quality that you're getting is really, rather than something coming from some ideas that you might come from, it's the quality of the inputs that you're getting from whānau, the quality of their voice and how that then is able to translate into your work is really important. But I think, yeah, as you say, that 10-year or so investment has been what's really valuable in taking the risk with doing all of that.
Absolutely.
Josh, from your perspective, what are some of the best practices you're seeing in your area?
I think for us, there's sort of 4 key areas we really focus on when we're empowering individuals or businesses to measure their, carbon and climate impact. And first is making it easy. It's not going to happen at scale if it's difficult. Measurement should not be a barrier to action. Having a clear theory of change is really important, and using that as a touch point to gauge progress, maintain our focus as an organization and the solutions that we build. constant iteration and improvement. I think this area is rapidly developing, and staying still means you're falling behind. So keeping an eye on changes and progress, and making sure you're accommodating for the latest research and data, and equally communicated well. I think the impact attained and the reason for why you're doing it, to increase awareness in this space, is really important. Another little link I'll drop in here, we were fortunate enough to be nominated for the Plain Language Awards in regards to impact as well. So drop a link there if anyone on the call knows of any organizations that should also be nominated, or People's Choice. This is a piece that is quite important, and hopefully an award or recognition of what our team does, making sure this is communicated well and you're taking all people on this journey, because that is so important as well.
Oh, and I guess taking that a step further, once you are doing that impact measurement, how can organizations and businesses then use that to make decisions or improve their work? Maybe just go back to Josh first.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think for us, once they've done the measurement, it's about then taking action. So it's about looking into certain areas and understanding the impact that you are creating or could create, and then sort of doubling down in those areas. In regards to us and sort of the climate impact, we see sort of hotspots of emissions for a business or a household, and the impact that they are having, whether positive or negative. If it is a large impact in regards to emissions, that's not such a great thing, but then it's about empowering them to take action to reduce those areas, and supporting small businesses through funding, through sustainable solutions, products and services to reduce in certain areas. And that's sort of a core part to us. Once we've done the first piece of measurement, it's about that reduction journey, and that's where we incorporate climate actions and behavioral science to take those individuals or small business owners on that journey to reduce.
And Brad, same question.
Yeah, look, Josh mentioned data earlier, right? That's a big one. And so for our organizations and our practitioners, it was a massive cultural shift to get them comfortable in being, I guess, data-driven in their practice. And so over the last 10 years, we've gone from, oh, this is Brad's report that we need to produce for the purpose of a funder, to actually, what do I need as a practitioner, as a nurse, as a social worker, as an educator, to help improve my engagement with whānau? And ultimately, what do whānau need so that they know that they're progressing along their respective journeys as well? Another big concept is accountability and ownership of the impact measurement and management approach. And so when you have whānau owning the solution, owning the tools, owning the journey, they are more accountable to achieve that change. And that's where you really get that transformational, sustainable change for whānau, because it's their program. They see themselves in it. No longer are we doing services and activities to them. No longer are we collecting a whole lot of different data for the sake of counting widgets and whatnots, etc. They can see themselves in the data. Our practitioners can see value in why they're collecting this core information so that they can gain insights around improving their practice. And that's exactly what it's about. It's how do I improve the way I engage and support whānau in my communities so that they are improving their lives. And that's what this whole kaupapa is about, around impact management.
Yeah, taking that a little bit further, you've kind of started to touch on it, how you can start to use impact measurement and impact management towards creating more equitable or just futures, or that more kind of sustainable futures. Perhaps, Brad, if you could keep, go into that in a bit more detail, and perhaps any examples. I know that you'll have plenty of advocacy and those sorts of.
I do, and Kristen, I'm very passionate about this. So every day when we wake up, whānau, 2/3 of tamariki in care are Māori. 60,000 Māori in Auckland do not have access to appropriate primary healthcare services. 20,000 of our rangatahi, our youth, aged 15 to 24, are not in education, training, or employment. Every stat that you look at, we're well behind non-Māori or European. And I don't say that to belittle the outcomes achieved by other cohorts. I say that as a comparator, that if we get the environment and the ecosystem right for certain cohorts, that's what can be achieved. And so that's what our organisation and myself, when we go down to Wellington and we meet with ministers, that's what we advocate for, is better investment for our whānau ora providers. So for example, we're 20% of the population, Māori are 20% of the population, we get 2% of the investment. So 90% of dollars that are voted for whānau Māori are not being deployed through Māori providers. And those are statistics that have been achieved as a result of that. And so that's what we want to see, is a shift of investment from government through our Māori health providers that have proven to deliver outcomes and impact for our whānau on a very small amount of resourcing. And so that's why we use our impact management approach to advocate for further devolution of funding from government agencies to our Māori health providers to reduce that inequity gap that we're seeing across all sectors in Aotearoa.
Nice. And I think very much related is also the, looking at equitable transitions in terms of the environment and sustainability. So Josh, perhaps if you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think on the equity side, I think the ability for individuals and businesses to measure impact, it needs to be accessible for all. It needs to be free, it needs to be broad, it needs to be easy to access and to use. We need to break down those barriers, as I mentioned before. If impact's the start towards action, then it needs to be no barriers to measure that impact. I think on the justice side, impact measurement, and specifically what we do in regards to sort of carbon, it shines a light on supply chains and high emitting areas. And I think we're hoping through engagement and carbon literacy, more people become aware of embodied emissions as well, and sort of the supply chain of manufacturing and where they're getting their products from, which is very important. I think beyond carbon, and Kogo started as conscious consumers 14 years ago on the mission to empower individuals to align their spending with their values. And I think for us, we're starting with carbon for many reasons. It is very important, but we have the ability to apply more environmental and social impact lenses to the enrichment of transaction data, such as percentage of spend with B Corps, percentage of spend with living wage businesses, New Zealand made, Indigenous ownership, women-led businesses. Everyone's values are different, and we have the hope and the vision that through your spend you would be able to align your values to where you are spending, and hopefully through that you can start shifting towards more equitable and justice and social focused, and any of the values that are of most importance to you. And we feel if we get that at scale, then we're shifting economies, and we feel that that's the sort of the greatest impact that we can have.
Yeah, amazing. Looking at, I guess, from all of this is all, great challenges and a great opportunity for us all to be accessing. What are some of those challenges and opportunities that you see in terms of measuring impact, and I guess some practical tips, tricks, tools that people, if they're starting on their journey or even if they're a lot further along, might be able to use in terms of embedding impact management into their approaches? Brad?
Yeah, look, I guess the first, or one of the biggest challenges, is actually shifting the mindset of our big funders, government agencies, for example, especially in our space. And Josh has obviously already talked around trying to create a better environment that we live in. And so there's a saying in Māoridom that ka ora te whenua, ka ora te tangata. So when the land is well, and when we say land, we're talking about the rivers, the lakes, the seas, the people are well. And so we've got to look at what the focus is on around not only focusing on those financial metrics, it's looking at the triple bottom line. It's about people, planet, and the profit. We call it whānau, whenua, and the financials as well. And so taking that holistic view and actually valuing the non-financial outcomes that we are seeing being delivered across our organizations, right? And so we have an approach called the social return on investment. And so our financial metrics are around return on investment. And so looking at investment going in and dollars coming out. So it's not just about the financial metrics, it's actually what are we creating in terms of social value for the whānau or the environment that we are delivering services and activities for, and how are we improving that over time. And so it's shifting the mindset around, actually, it's not just about cost or cost savings, it's actually looking at a long-term social investment approach to achieving health and social well-being outcomes for our whānau, for our communities, and for our whenua, as Josh has talked about.
And with that social return on investment or social value approach, what are some of the key principles that you embed into that?
Oh, look, number one, involve stakeholders. So there's 8 principles. I won't go into too much detail because then that turns into a theory lesson or SRI, but the first principle is involve stakeholders, right? And that carries all the way through. It's around understanding what changes are being experienced by our whānau. It's how do we respond to that? It's being transparent. We've seen some similar models out there, and there's a risk that they are cutting back on some of the fundamentals when you do a process like this for the sake of a social return on investment ratio at the end. So for every dollar that we're investing in an initiative or in a program, there's X amount of dollars in social value created. And if we're just focusing on that as the bottom line, we're again focusing on a financial metric. So it boils down all this great work that we're doing for a financial indicator so that we can demonstrate to government or our funders that we're doing a good job. But the best and biggest value that you receive in undertaking an analysis like this is that you better understand your stakeholders, you better understand the way you work with them, the way you engage with them, and how you ultimately can improve the way you deliver services. And that's the gold that you get out of undertaking a social return on investment or an impact analysis of this nature. And so the SRI ratio, we call that the full stop at the end of the sentence, but it's the sentence that we have all the value creation for ourselves, for our entities, and ultimately for the families and whānau that we serve.
The reason I ask is it's also somewhat related. Jamie asked a lot earlier on in the session whether it's a good strategy to focus on measuring just a couple of important factors rather than getting a broad view of big data, which I think that answer kind of talks to. Josh, do you have anything you would like to add on that question, or I guess the general challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, I think just adding on to that, Brad's mentioned a few pieces on stakeholders, and I just want to sort of add a lens that we see that is an emerging trend, that more stakeholders are asking for evidence of impact, which is fantastic, and how it is built into business strategy, be it corporate procurement or government procurement or investors or funders. And I think we are seeing that trend, which is really exciting for the space. And maybe, it is quite top heavy at the moment, but hopefully it does have that trickle down effect to the small businesses and the consumers asking for these things. So, we feel that that's the trend, and it is exciting to see more of that on stakeholder engagement with impact. I think the big one for us in regards to challenges in measuring impact is getting access to the data. We've talked about data a few times, but I think for us, often we're trying to measure impact that happens, 2 or 3 degrees of separation away, and sharing and receiving this data can be challenging. Working with banks to access data and accountancy, a scaled solution with us delivered by a safe and secure API helps us to do this most efficiently. But it is a team sport. We're working with many parties to drive the impact that we want to see. And that's through automated integrations and sharing of data. So we do need, open data. We do need a lot more data to open up to make it accessible for people to, access. And I think for us in regards to the tools, proud to have 2 tools in the New Zealand market for small businesses. They are free, so we'll have more hopefully next year. But shout out to Kiwi Bank who deployed a tool with us for small businesses to measure and reduce their emissions, and Xero. We have a partnership with Xero, so any Xero customers can do that as well for free. So that's been a great success for us to get those tools into market.
Great, and that's talking, I guess Tanya's got a question here about making impact measurement easier and accessible for smaller community-led NGOs. So that's the way that Kogo is doing it. Brad, when we're talking about smaller organisations or businesses that don't necessarily have the resources, what are some ways that it's more accessible for them to start on this?
Yeah, so we have an entity in New Zealand called Social Value Aotearoa, and I've just been made the chair of that entity. And so we are the Aotearoa affiliate to Social Value International. So there's some great resources online there. There's some little snapshot type workshops that you can do around sort of Impact 101 and those type of things. You've got Kristen with Akina as well that we partner with in this space. And so there's a lot of resources online. So you do go, I'll put a link into the chat around the Social Value Aotearoa website on there. And then you can join for a very minimal fee and you get access to members only resources as well. So I suggest to go on, I've just seen someone's added it up there as well. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things, but what I'm saying is just start the journey, right? You got to be brave, get out there. You're not going to get things right. We've got so many things wrong over the last 10 years, but for every 2-3 we've got wrong, we've got 5-6 right. And so it's about being comfortable to operate in that risk space. It's about starting that journey and starting somewhere.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left, so I'm just going to pass over to Josh any last comments you might have before we close.
Look, I think Brad summed it up there very, very nicely. I think it's about starting the journey, and that's what we sort of see in our space as well. Everyone's at a different stage of their sustainability journey, be it an individual, a household, a company. We talk about a spectrum of green, the light to the dark green, no matter where you are. It's about doing that next thing and starting the journey for those that haven't. So that's, I suppose, the encouragement and the challenge I put forward to everyone is what is the next thing that you're going to do for your household, for your company to lessen the impact for future generations by doing something today.
Absolutely. And Brad, any last comments?
No, that's all for me. Just a big mihi to everyone for attending online. Big mihi to you, Kristen, and the team for organising this event. Always encouraging to have people involved in our impact management kaupapa, and ultimately it's for and with our people that we are wanting to improve, right? And so this is all part of the tool set that we need to get out there. So start the journey, whānau.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you especially to Josh and Brad for jumping onto this. Apologies I didn't get to all of those questions, but you're welcome to hit us up on LinkedIn and happy to connect you in any way that we can. Kia ora, everyone, and thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Kristen, Josh, and Brad. And thanks for keeping to time. That makes my job easy. There were some really good questions in the chat in the last few minutes. So thanks everybody for getting in there. Perhaps if the three speakers have some time to answer the questions that Kristen didn't read out, if you could just get into the chat and get typing. Anybody else is welcome to jump in there with your thoughts, your experience, opinions. This conference is all about starting discussions, so don't be shy to share your korero.